We're going to be looking at isosceles triangles and equilateral triangles and seeing some theorems about them. So remember, your isosceles has two congruent sides in the triangle. Now we have a little bit of vocabulary that we need to look at. The angles opposite the congruent sides, we call those base angles. So these right here, both of those are our base angles. Okay. Then we have the vertex angle. So our vertex angle is the one that's not the base angles. Okay? And then we call the congruent sides legs. And then we call the non-congruent side the base. Okay? So here we've got, this is the base, and then our legs are those sides. Okay. So we have this theorem that's called the base angles theorem. So it says if two sides of a triangle are congruent, which essentially is meaning if it's isosceles, then the angles opposite them are congruent. So not only do we know that the two sides are congruent, then we also know that the two angles are congruent. Okay. We also have the converse. The converse is where you switch the if and the then. So notice on the base angles theorem, it was we had the two sides and we knew things about the angles. So now we're going to go backwards. So we know things about the angles and then we find things out about the sides. So it says if two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite them are congruent. So you can go the opposite direction. So if we know that the angles are congruent, then we also know that the sides across from them are congruent. Okay. Now, we have this thing that's called a corollary. It's like a subset of a theorem. So if you have an isosceles triangle, not isosceles, if you have an equilateral triangle, I thought that was highlighted, try again. If we have an equilateral triangle, that means that it's also equiangular. Or if we have that it's equiangular, it's also equilateral. So what we can do is we can use these pieces of information to help us find missing parts of triangles. So if we look at our next example, again, it messed up. This should say triangle ABC. So it wants us to find the measures of ABC. Okay? So if I look over here, notice we've got this tick mark and this tick mark, which means that they're congruent, which means from our base angles theorem, I now know that these two things are congruent. So notice marking up my triangle helped me see the next step. So if I know that these two are congruent, I can set 4x equal to 6x minus 36. So now I just need to solve. You need to get the x's on one side and the variables on the other side. So here I'm going to move the 6x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 6x. This is not the only way you can get there. It is a way you can get there. I could have also added the 36 and then subtracted the 4x. Those are both acceptable as well. So here I want to undo timesing. Notice even though there's a negative in front that it's being multiplied, so I want to undo multiplying, not subtracting. So I'm going to divide by -2. If I want to undo, that's not what I want to say. When we divide by -2, we end up with 18. But you should always go back to the instructions and check what it says. Notice it says find all the measures. Well, I haven't found all of the measures. All that I found is what x is. So that means I need to plug it in. So I'm going to plug in angle B is 4x. So that means the angle B is really going to be 4 times, and then I'm plugging in x, which is 18. So if we do 4 times 18, that gives us 72. So angle B is 72. Now, that's one of our answers. I still have to find angle A and angle C. Well, if we find angle C is 6 times x, which we're going to plug in 18 to, and then minus 36. So we go 6 times 18 minus 36. So if we do 6 times 18 minus 36, that leaves us with 72. Which notice, if you remember, you could have got here quicker because we said that these two angles are congruent. So if B was 72, that means that C had to be 72. So that's a second way you could have got there. Well, now there's nothing on angle A. I have to remember how many degrees are in a triangle. So don't forget that A plus B plus C, angle A plus angle B plus angle C has to equal 180 degrees. So I'm going to do 72 plus the measurement of angle A. Remember the M means the measurement. This sign right here means angle. That has to equal 180. So if I do 72 plus 72, that gives us 144, because these are like terms. So I have 144 plus the measurement of angle A equals 180. So that means I'm going to do 180 minus 144, and I'm subtracting 144 because I want to undo this add 144. So the measurement of angle A is 36 degrees. Sorry, I hit the scroll button. 36 degrees. Okay. So let's try another one. Okay. We again want to look at what information we have from our triangle. So we know that these three sides are congruent, which means if we know the sides are congruent, we know that the angles opposite them are congruent. So we know these three are the same. We also know that there are 180 degrees in a triangle. Now there's technically two ways that you could set this up. I could do, well actually there's more than two, 3 times the 4x plus 24 equals 180, right? Or I could do 4x plus 24 plus 4x plus 24 plus 4x plus 24 equals 180, right? Now, we also have these two things, this angle right here and this angle right here, make a linear pair. So I could also do 4x plus 24 plus 11y minus 23 equals 180. Oh wait, that one's problematic because we have an x and a y, so we're going to have to hold on there. So to find x, I have to solve one of these two equations at the top. There's a couple ways you could go from here. Again, I could distribute the 3 here to both of these, or since 3 goes into 180, I could also choose to divide by 3. I'm going to choose to divide by 3. So if I do 180 divided by 3, that gives me 60. So I have 4x plus 24 equals 60. So I'm going to do 60 minus 24, because I want to undo the adding of 24. So we get 4x equals 36. Well, now I want to undo multiplying, so we undo multiplying by dividing. So we're going to divide by 4, so we get x is 9. Okay. Well, that helps us find x, but I don't have my y value. But I could use this over here to get to my y value, except for the fact that I need to plug the x in to here. Now, I can either plug it in, or I can solve for this angle, the purple angle, first, and then put that into our equation. So I could do 4 times 9 plus 24. Right, that equals our angle. I don't have anything to name it by, so I don't need to worry about that. So that gives us 60. So this whole thing right here is 60. So I can do 60 plus 11y minus 23 equals 180. Well, now I want to look at combining like terms. Well, we've got 60 and negative 23 are like terms. So if I do 60 minus 23, that gives us 37. So now we have 11y plus 37 equals 180. Again, we're trying to undo the order of operations backwards. I wrote 2 y's. We only need 1 y. So I'm going to undo adding 37 first. So I'm going to subtract 37. So we have 11y equals, and then if we do 180 minus 37, that leaves us with 143. So we want to undo timesing the 11. So to undo timesing, we divide by 11 on both sides. So we get y is 13. And I think the instructions ended up on the other page. Yeah, the formatting didn't work spectacularly well. So the find x and y up here was really for this problem, and then the find all measures was for that problem. Formatting got messed up on that. Okay. If we look at this next one, again, it didn't transfer well. We want to find the measurement of angle CED and the measurement of B and the measurement of C. We want all of those. Okay. So we're trying to find CED. So C to E to D is this one. And then we want to find the measurement of angle B, which is this one. Notice I didn't need 3 letters on that one because there's only one angle on B. And then I want to find the measurement of angle C, which is this one. All right, so we have several things we're looking for. Now, notice I also have that these two are congruent and these two are congruent. Okay. Well, if we know these two are congruent in triangle ABE, that means I know that these two are congruent. So let's start with that. If this is 65, let's call this x, which means that's also x. So I do x plus 65 has to equal 180 because there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So we have like terms of x and x, so that gives us 2x plus 65 equals 180. So if we take 180 and I take away 65, that gives us 2x equals 115. Now, again, I took away 65 so I could get the x by itself. So here, to undo timesing by 2, we're going to divide by 2. So we get x is 57.5. Okay. So this is 57.5. Okay. Now, if you look, I'm running out of colors to show you. This, let's see, here is orange. This angle here, the CED that we're trying to find, and then this angle here, those are vertical angles, which means if this one's 57.5, this one, angle CED, is also 75 degrees, 57.5 degrees, sorry. So this is the measurement of angle CED. Well, now we're on a good track. We know these two sides are congruent, right? Which means that this angle has to be the same as this angle. So we know that this one is 57.5. Notice that I'm marking up my triangle, my diagram. Well, if we know those two are 57.5, then we can find this one. Now, hopefully you can see that these are I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, I know. These two, the 57.5s, are the same, which means that angle C is going to have to add up to the same amount as angle A. So, or you could do 57.5 plus 57.5 plus the measurement of angle C has to equal 180 degrees. Okay. So then you'll get, just for sake of doing the work, you'll get that this is 115 plus the measurement of angle C equals 180. So then I do 180 minus the 115, which gives us the measurement angle C is 65. So we've got CED, and then we also needed to find angle B, which was the same as our measurement of angle CED. Okay. So then that is our final answer for that one. Now, if we take a look at this next one, I'm going to erase just a few things on here so we can see this one well. If we take a look at this triangle, okay, notice we have that this is isosceles. Okay. Which means if this is isosceles, we know that the angles across, so across and across, those two angles are congruent. Well, if this one is 4x plus 6, that means that this one has to be 4x plus 6, which means I have 3 pieces of information about my triangle, and we need 3 pieces of information for our angle sum theorem if you have x's. So that means I can find it. So we've got 4x plus 6 plus 4x plus 6, or you could do 2 times 4x plus 6, either way, plus 20x equals 180 degrees. So now we have like terms that we want to look at. So we've got the 4x, and the 20x. So that gives us 28x. And then we have the 6, and then that's it. So plus 12 equals 180. Again, you do the order of operations backwards, so I want to get rid of adding and subtracting. So I'm going to undo adding 12 by subtracting 12. So we have 28x equals 180 minus 12, which gives us 168. We want to undo timesing by 28, so we're going to divide by 28. So x is 6. Now notice up here, I almost cut it off, but it says to find x. So then I'm all done. I don't need to find anything else because it didn't ask for anything. If I said find x and solve for angle B, then I would have to have x is 6, but also plug in 6 for x in B and find out what that is. Okay? So make sure you're paying attention to your instructions.